there's a huge wow effect because people, I've heard things like, you've shown me in a matter of 4 days through this POC what, more than we've accomplished in the last 6 months building internally.
All right, Darko, Poly API. I first came across Poly API while talking with Weir at Oracle, who happened to mention you guys are AI enabling the APIs on OHIP. And since hotels need this seamless integrations with multiple applications like the property management system, housekeeping, central reservation system, the list goes on. It's a real nightmare for hotels and all these disparate systems. I thought we really should talk. So why don't we kick it off with what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks for having me on, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here. So our mission is really to make API consumption, broadly speaking, easier. And that involves both events as well as kind of request response APIs. And really this manifests as kind of 4 different business problems that we see over and over and over. And many times companies will have multiple of these. But it's really around making internal development teams as efficient as possible. So we want them to be as productive in creating new applications, new experiences, new integrations. We also many times need integrations to other systems to be able to be marketable to the market. So our users expect us to be pre-integrated with other systems like OHIP, like CRSs, like housekeeping, etc. And so we as technology companies have to basically build those for our customers. So many times integrations are absolutely necessary. And then also reducing cost and basically helping those consumers of our APIs be more successful. So many times there's non-industry domain experts that have to learn and ramp up, and they're not just learning how to interface with the API specifically, but they're really learning the workflows and the sequences and the object models and what these attributes mean. And so there's just a lot of learning that, there's a steep curve for somebody who's not a domain expert. And so at Poly, we just really want to make API consumption as easy as possible to create a world where, developers can much more easily integrate and consume these APIs without having to be domain experts.
So you've got a demo video on your homepage of your website, but why don't you describe your solution for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So the solution is really developer centric. And so that's kind of the first thing off the bat. This is not a low code or no code application. This is really all around helping developers be more productive and more efficient. So what that demo actually illustrates is kind of an end-to-end use case showcasing all of the capabilities of Poly in one demo. So first off, what it does is it starts with training Poly. So Poly learns from observation, meaning that a developer can use Postman to show us how an API works. And that's where Poly's AI basically observes and learns from. It also goes ahead and describes what it sees, such that when you train an API endpoint to Poly, it will start off with a function that already has a description. It understands what arguments are there. Those arguments have descriptions. And then the response type is also understood by the AI so that description explains what you'll get back from this function. So that's the training, and it's really AI enabled to accelerate and save time for developers rather than having to rely on getting open API specifications or configuration where you click around, drag, drop, and just really all that work goes into telling the machine what the API does. And we figured out a way to use AI to just learn from observation. The second big thing that demo shows is then using those APIs as functions and creating your own custom functions on top of it. And those base API functions are really there to just let you interface with those systems easily. But your custom functions on top are there for things like orchestration, aggregation, transformation, different types of things that you want to do with those APIs. And many times these orchestrations like check-in and check-out and collecting payments, those are multiple API calls to multiple systems behind the scenes to orchestrate that flow. And so what those custom functions do is they allow you to take that experience and create a new function, which then becomes discoverable through our AI assistant, as well as consumable through our client library. And so that new custom function is your work on top of Poly. And then lastly, what that demo showcases is then being able to handpick a set of API and custom functions that you want to create into a new AI model. And we right now are working with OpenAI just because they're the furthest along, but we see an opportunity to support multiple AI providers, where by selecting those custom functions and generating that plugin, what you in turn do is basically create a new API, which the AI can use to basically perform actions for a user. And so you can build, AI-powered guest journeys. You can build AI-powered BI and analysis tools for your employees. You can build, different kinds of AI-powered interfaces, which today are largely dominated by kind of chat interfaces, which is a great start. But pretty soon you're going to have like buttons that do AI, an AI sits behind that button and performs a different action. You're going to have UIs that are rendered differently based on who the consumer is, based on an AI making determinations behind the scenes using the guest's profile or previous stay, etc. So there's going to be a lot of great use cases that are going to show up, that we think that demo showcases basically just a quick overview of what's possible.
And this is for developers.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And are you working with anyone else? I mean, you're pretty broad. So, I mean, I ran into you with Oracle, but are you working with? I would imagine this would be very beneficial to technology providers in the hotel space that are messing around. There's been talk about open APIs for several years now, and I'm not a technologist, but I hear there's issues. It's not really open and all that kind of stuff. So I would imagine what you're talking about could be quite beneficial to that group of providers.
Yeah, so definitely, like for example, Oracle has opened up their APIs, and those are truly open. You have to go through a sign up process. They give you access to a sandbox. They give you people you can be in touch with to help you along the way. So what they've really done is they've opened it, but now you still have to be able to make use of it. And so there's still a steep learning curve on how to actually use these APIs. And it's not the APIs themselves, it's more so the industry specific workflows and sequences and orchestrations that trip people up. So there's still absolutely a lot of work. And the way I like to explain what Poly does is it takes a concept like functions, which is usually chapter 4 or chapter 5 in a programming book, where you get introduced to the idea that you pass some inputs in and you get some response back, right? Now it takes APIs, which is a concept that's usually not even covered in beginning programming books, and it distills it down to like a chapter 4 level of complexity. So we really, really are pulling something that's inherently complex and reducing it to something relatively simple for the developers to work with. And really, what we hear back from our partners and potential customers that have this use case of external consumers consuming their APIs is that many times the consumers just kind of go off track and start doing stuff that maybe isn't the most efficient. I'll give you an example. Like, they might get a token for every API call, which just puts a lot of load on an identity provider. So things like that they do that could be streamlined by putting kind of basically guide rails like Poly, by giving them a set of functions and a set of sequences that you can use to accomplish your workflow. Could really, really simplify it both for the consumer, but also reduce the tax on the providers.
So what kind of results are you hearing from your customers?
Yeah, so we're currently in our beta 2, and we're marching towards a GA. And the first GA is going to be a free to use public release with obviously limits on how many functions you can have, how many API calls you can make. But it's really to get the product out there so that people can start moving into production in pilots and things of that sort. And so basically the results we're hearing is that there's a huge wow effect, because people, I've heard things like, you've shown me in a matter of 4 days through this POC what more than we've accomplished in the last 6 months building internally. And this is like something I had to do in addition to running this company as part of a POC, versus something that they have a dedicated team to. And so there's this huge time savings when you basically just accept the principle that people don't really want to spend the time to learn these APIs. They want it to just work, right? And I just want it to work. I want it to give me what I need it to, and I'm happy to lean on a client SDK like with the one provided by Poly to basically accomplish that. They also really love the fact that our client library transcends across multiple APIs. So you basically get one interface that kind of unifies disparate backend systems that have built over decades using different approaches, different design patterns, different technologies. And so just all that complexity is kind of abstracted away to simple functions. And then, the other big thing is that people love is the idea that Poly can help them remove more complicated, more expensive systems that are commonly used for orchestrations and aggregations and consuming these different APIs, where you don't have to have the specialized skill set. You don't have to have a consultant that inherently takes away your institutional knowledge when they roll off the project. You can use TypeScript, Python, Java. You can use Kubernetes to run the service. So these are readily available skills that you can leverage, and we line up right to a developer's common workflows, so that there's no new paradigm or new language or new IDE or new DevOps platform that you have to ramp up on and inherently go find specialists that tend to be really expensive.
Well, that sounds very exciting, Darko. I thank you for joining me. I look forward to watching you guys take the next jump.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Jason. It's a pleasure to come on, tell you a little bit about Poly. And if you're a company out there that's struggling with either integrations or API consumption, or just looking for a better, more efficient way, please reach out, and we'd be happy to discuss and see if we can help you out.
All right, thank you.